Set to vote to legalise homosexual sex at 16. Gay campaigners are predicting an overwhelming majority for an equal age of consent. More British fans deported as football's governing body calls for a campaign against World Cup hooligans. And Louise Woodward tells the BBC she was made a scapegoat for the baby's death. Good evening. Within the next hour, MPs are expected to vote to lower the age of consent for homosexual men from 18 to 16. It would mean homosexuals would be treated by the law in the same way as heterosexuals. Some MPs are also trying to change the law to make it an offence for adults in charge of youngsters under 18 to have sex with them. It's supported by senior clergymen, but the government has suggested it may prove unworkable.
Gay rights campaigners gathered at the Commons tonight are confident of winning their battle to have the age of consent for homosexuals lowered from 18 to 16, bringing it into line with that for heterosexuals. Two-thirds of MPs have pledged their support, and the major party leaders are all backing the change. Campaigners say it's a matter of equality.
I'm not so bothered about what the age is, but I think it has to be equality for heterosexuals as well as homosexuals.
It shows us that we're just the same as everyone else, that sex is sex and it doesn't really matter who you're having it with as long as you're doing it safely.
Proposing the change, Labour's Anne Keane denied 16-year-olds were likely to be confused about their sexuality.
The myth of the vulnerable, confused young man was in fact rejected by the Wolfenden report over 40 years ago. Over 40 years ago, they said, our medical witnesses were unanimously of a view that the main sexual pattern is laid down in the early years of life.
But others want safeguards to protect youngsters from predators and are backing an amendment to make it an offence for adults in positions of authority over youngsters, boys or girls, to have sex with those under 18.
Our duty is to protect, and our duty is to protect the innocent. And if there are half a dozen or even one young man who would be adversely affected by the passing of this amendment, we have to take that seriously into account.
MPs will be free to vote according to their consciences, not on party orders. But Anglican bishops are worried they'll be sending the wrong message to youngsters.
Well, I think the bishops are concerned that it might give a message that anything goes, and that we're abandoning proper boundaries of moral restraint. I think that's the concerns the bishops have, and I suspect those concerns are widely shared.
It's a sober, serious debate tonight, crucially affecting many people's personal lives. MPs will back a change in the law, and with government worries over the Adults in Authority amendment, that's unlikely to be added. But it will be tougher going in the Lords, where some peers are pledged to oppose what they call a paedophile's charter, and where the bishops will have their say. Robin Oakley, BBC News, Westminster.
4 England fans are back in Britain after being expelled from France under emergency powers intended to prevent more violence at the World Cup. 6 German supporters were also deported after yesterday's clashes in Lens that left a French police officer critically injured after being hit over the head with an iron bar. The German Chancellor Helmut Kohl said the violence of German fans was a disgrace for his country.
At the French Interior Ministry, another difficult and depressing day. This is the operations room where intelligence on known hooligans is gathered and evaluated. There are police teams from all over the world working here, but their efforts haven't been enough to stop outbreaks of violence, first by English, then by German fans. There's a limit, say the French, to what modern policing techniques and even sheer weight of numbers can achieve.
There were 700 policemen in Lens last night, and Lens is a 35,000 city. City, so it's a small city, a lot of policemen for a small place. We couldn't do more, really.
Some French officials have said the German hooligans who attacked police in the northern city of Lens yesterday were noticeably sober. The suspicion they'd avoided heavy drinking to allow them to orchestrate the violence more effectively. Possible links with neo-Nazi groups are being investigated. A gendarme, a married man with 2 children, who was attacked from behind with an iron bar, is now on a life support machine in hospital. The 27-year-old German is being questioned. Chancellor Kohl in Bonn spoke of his country's shame.
It's a disgrace for our country. It's always a disgrace if people behave like that in a foreign country. I hope they'll be prosecuted by the French authorities. Otherwise, the German courts should become active in the matter.
Among the first victims of a toughening of police attitudes in France, which has resulted from all of this, 4 English fans deported to Heathrow Airport today, after discussions between French and English security officials. Such expulsions are meant to target possible troublemakers, but the first victims insisted they'd done nothing in France to justify deportation.
We got spotters there, and once you're known, we've been pulled out and deported, and that's it.
I mean, were you planning to start trouble?
Nobody plans to start trouble now.
I mean, what have you got a conviction for?
Football related.
Last night's violence has soured the World Cup for Lens. With the clearing up barely completed, they are now contemplating Friday's game between England and Colombia and hoping for better things. The French had years to prepare the policing operation for this World Cup, but with the gendarme hurt last night now fighting for his life in intensive care, there is shock at the scale and savagery of the violence. There's talk of stepping up security, of course, but the reality is that this problem, so hard for many people to comprehend, is equally hard for the authorities to contain. Kevin Connolly, BBC News, Paris.
Louise Woodward has spoken at length for the first time since returning to Britain about her trial and conviction for the manslaughter of the American baby in her charge. Her interview with BBC Television is to be broadcast in just under an hour's time. In it, she said she was made a scapegoat for the death of 9-month-old Matthew Eapen. There's been an angry reaction from the Eapen's lawyer.
She's free and she's home, but she stands convicted of killing an 8-month-old baby. Louise Woodward knows that much of the British public regards her with suspicion, but insists that she's a victim of the authorities' rush to judgment.
The mentality is that somebody has to pay. You know, and that seemed to be the problem, that, well, if the parents didn't do it, who did? There's only you left. And there was the whole feeling that somebody has to pay, and that somebody had to be me. But like I say, you know, I didn't do anything wrong.
In her interview with the BBC's Panorama programme, the 20-year-old is defensive, though when pushed, she admits her situation today could be very much worse.
So do you accept that you were fortunate?
Yes, I do. I know I'm fortunate.
The 279 days wasn't very long.
I think 279 days is a long time for an innocent person to serve, for when it's 279 days of agonizing worry and pain and being torn away from your family, being locked up in a prison in a strange country. And please remember that I was 18.
I'm all in favour of educating. When the former au pair first spoke to reporters at Manchester Airport, her performance was remarkably composed. She conducted her first in-depth interview alone, without the backing of parents or lawyers. In the interview, Louise Woodward relives the events of the day Matthew was rushed to hospital. She describes the Eapen children as adorable and says she would never have done anything to harm them. But her comments have already drawn a scathing response from those who led the case against her. The policeman who arrested Woodward has spoken for the first time to BBC News Online. Detective Sergeant William Byrne asked, why is it so hard for many people to realise that this is absolute child abuse? It happens every day in America and in England. Meanwhile, the lawyer for Matthew Eapen's parents has said she's not a victim, but a liar.
It has nothing to do with being a scapegoat. She was the person there when the injuries were inflicted on little Matty Eapen. She was the person in the household who was caring for him on February 4th, 1997, when these terrible injuries were inflicted.
The Eapens are now suing Louise Woodward for tens of thousands of dollars. Public opinion could become an important factor in the second trial, due to begin this October. Philippa Thomas, BBC News.
And you can see the full interview with Louise Woodward on Panorama tonight at 10 o'clock on BBC One. The 2 British soldiers stranded on North America's highest mountain for 4 days have been rescued. Sergeant Martin Spooner and Corporal Carl Bugard were winched off Mount McKinley in Alaska and flown to hospital. The 2 men fell down the notorious Orient Express Gully near the summit of the mountain. They survived without food in sub-zero temperatures and escaped with minor injuries.
A rescue helicopter finally brought to an end the ordeal of the two British climbers, stranded some 19,000 feet up a mountain for nearly 4 days in freezing conditions with no food. First off and into hospital, Sergeant Martin Spooner, with no serious injuries.
I'm fine. Just tell me, what was it like up there over the last 3 days?
Cold.
Let's wait till we get
Cold.
inside.
Yeah, cold.
Then Corporal Carl Bugard, suffering from severe frostbite and likely to remain in hospital for the next few days. They were trying to scale North America's highest mountain, Mount McKinley, in the wilds of Alaska. The plan was to go up, then come down, eventually kayaking out to sea. But blinding snow, powerful winds and temperatures of minus 30 degrees made the descent a nightmare. Some of the team fell 300 feet down a steep gully. 2 climbers managed to make it to a base camp. Carl Bugard and Martin Spooner were left stranded.
Martin is a fighter. He's very strong mentally. He would have just switched on to autopilot, really. He's so well trained and experienced, and he loves mountaineering.
A team of American climbers on Mount McKinley at the same time as the British expedition also ran into trouble. One man who fell is in hospital in a critical condition. The British climbers' experience in survival techniques undoubtedly saved their lives, but since 1972, 15 climbers have perished on North America's highest peak. The speed at which the weather can change up there can prove fatal. Clive Myrie, BBC News, Anchorage, Alaska.
Here, Tony Blair has been at a topping out ceremony to mark the completion of the highest point on the roof of the Millennium Dome. He said the building at Greenwich in southeast London would survive well into the next century and was far too impressive to be demolished after the Millennium celebrations.
New pictures of the dome released by the developers today give some idea of just how huge it is. From the top looking down inside, you're left in no doubt. 80 specialists have spent 4 months fitting the Teflon-coated glass fibre roof. Today, 4 abseiled down through the vast space, the latest stage in a government campaign to persuade a sceptical public to love the dome. A year after giving it the go-ahead, the Prime Minister was presented with a plaque and invited to stamp his initials on it. After several unsuccessful goes, he succeeded, then reaffirmed his faith in the dome.
This will be the most famous new building in the world in the year 2000. And there could be no better advertisement for our ingenuity and our hard work.
The Prime Minister met and congratulated the construction team and declared the dome too good to tear down once the year 2000 has passed. The biggest building of its type in the world, the Millennium Dome covers 80,000 square metres, or 20 acres. That means Wembley Stadium would fit into it twice over. At its centre, the dome is 50 metres high, as tall as Nelson's Column. It would take 18,000 double-decker buses piled on top of each other to fill the space.
There's no doubting the dome is a hugely impressive building. The question now, can they fill it with content equally impressive?
The architects believe they can.
The thing that was wonderful about this morning was seeing large groups of people in here. And when we've got 30,000 people in this place, it's the people and the content that are going to count, not the envelope.
Today's carefully staged managed ceremony was watched by some of the sponsors who've now stumped up £100 million. But critics question the dome's environmental impact and some of the sponsors' motives.
British Airports Authority and British Airways are bankrolling this scheme to a significant degree, and we think that's just they're going to wait for a big payback from the government, either by the government giving permission for the M25 to be widened or for Terminal 5 at Heathrow to be built.
But the dome, all £750 million worth, is on budget and on time, and the government's confident it can win the public round. Nick Hyam, BBC News, Greenwich.
Police on both sides of the Irish border are hunting the driver of a petrol tanker who knocked down and killed a British soldier at a security checkpoint. It happened near the village of Crossmaglen, close to the border. The driver had been stopped and questioned for 20 minutes before driving off without warning. The soldier tried to flag him down, but was knocked over. The tanker was later found abandoned. The Ulster Democratic Party has launched its manifesto for Thursday's elections to the new Northern Ireland Assembly. The party said it would work to reunite unionism within the Assembly, and it promised to work with the other parties to make Northern Ireland a better place to live. A man has appeared before magistrates in Cheshire charged with abducting a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Claire Hart disappeared last Thursday on her way to school in Congleton. Craig Smith, who's 19, was remanded in custody. Police looking for Claire have widened the search area. A Canadian businessman has gone on trial at Exeter Crown Court accused of murdering a British man and assuming his identity. 51-year-old Ronald Platt's body was found in a fishing boat's nets in July 1996. Police were only able to identify him by the serial number on his Rolex watch. Albert Walker has pleaded not guilty to his murder.
Canadian financier Albert Walker arrived at court under police escort to face a charge of murder. It's claimed that he first befriended, then killed Ronald Platt, described in court as a loner, because he needed a new identity. The court has heard that Walker fled Canada to escape fraud charges there. When he came to England, he needed a new name, a new persona, and Ronald Platt, a man with few friends, fitted the bill. It's the prosecution's case that he killed him and then dumped his body in the sea off the Devon coastline. The prosecution say the murder might have gone unsolved had this trawler not dredged up the body. And the serial number on a gold Rolex watch he was wearing helped police identify that body and then lead them to the man pretending to be Ronald Platt. This case is already attracting international media attention. The first witness this afternoon was Walker's own daughter, Sheena, who arrived under police escort. The jury has heard that at one stage they were living together as man and wife, calling themselves Ronald and Noelle Platt. Walker denies murder. The case is likely to last 3 weeks. Clinton Rogers, BBC News, Exeter Crown Court.
The government has appointed the former Solicitor General, Lord Archer of Sandwell, to oversee the compensation of Holocaust survivors whose assets were confiscated by the British government during the Second World War. Thousands of people had money and property taken from them under legislation intended to confiscate enemy assets. The BBC has learned that one claim alone for confiscated works of art could be worth £5 million.
Gabor Bedo wants redress for a 50-year-old wrong. And now that Budapest is free from communism, he stands a chance of success. Gabor's father, Rudolf, assembled an extraordinary art collection in the 1920s and 30s. It included a Renoir, a Van Dyck, and dozens of notable works. But in 1939, with war approaching, he removed them from the family home and sent them to London for safekeeping.
He regarded it as a lifeboat in case he have to flee, either before the Nazis or the war or both. Then it should be a possibility for us to restart a new life.
In the city of London, the Blitz destroyed much of the city of London, but amazingly the Bedo collection, stored at a warehouse next to St. Paul's, survived unscathed, only to be offered at auction in this sale room after the British government confiscated Mr. Bedo's property and then sold it off because Hungary was an enemy nation. Today, such a sale would raise millions. Then it realised £4,500, with the proceeds going to the Treasury.
It was right, proper and appropriate to sell off goods, property, artworks belonging to Nazis. It was disgraceful to sell off artworks, property, assets belonging to people who were murdered by the Nazis.
The paintings have scattered around the world, but after weeks of research, I found one in an art museum in North Carolina. And this is one of the Bedo collection. It's called St. Cosmos and St. Damian, attributed to the 14th century artist Matteo di Pacino. According to the experts, it's one of the finest examples of Florentine religious art anywhere in the world, and it could be worth up to $500,000. So far, Britain has set aside £2 million to compensate Holocaust claimants, but it may well prove to be inadequate.
Whether the government think that £2 million is going to be enough is something that I'm not really privy to. They have said, in fairness, £2 million in the first instance, but I can imagine that they would be rather surprised at the size of the first claim that is being discussed.
The Bedo collection could be worth £5 million at today's values, and with possibly thousands of claims to be met, restitution is going to be hard to achieve. John Silverman, BBC News.
And you can see more on that story on Newsnight on BBC Two at 10:30. The Prime Minister's Chief Press Secretary, Alistair Campbell, will appear before a committee of MPs tomorrow to face questions on his role and his relationship with Tony Blair. He's been accused of reprimanding ministers, flouting his civil service status and misleading journalists. Our political correspondent John Sopel profiles the man dubbed by some as the second most powerful man in Britain.
Anywhere that Tony Blair goes, Alistair Campbell goes too. This is the European Parliament in Strasbourg.
What about?
Well, about Britain and Europe.
He's just done Britain and Europe.
It's Campbell's job to both protect and project the Prime Minister. This morning he's been tipped off that Spanish TV has a gift for Mr. Blair, a pink plastic guitar.
You just take the guitar, give it to me and get in the car.
Oh, you're going to play it, eh?
Yeah, you're going to play it.
Their relationship is like few others in British politics. It's one of total trust and close friendship. But that gives Campbell, a former tabloid journalist, immense clout, and he's not afraid to throw his weight around, whether it be with ministers or journalists.
He's very energetic, he's a bully, he's enthusiastic. He's like a football supporter out there on the terraces who wants to win 6-0 every Saturday.
And appropriately enough, one of Campbell's closest confidants outside politics is the Manchester United manager. He says Campbell does a vital job for the Prime Minister.
Someone has to take on the role of taking away all the peripherals away from the man in charge, so he can get on with the essence and the core of running his country.
That gives Campbell a wide-ranging brief. He wasn't afraid to fire off a memo rebuking two ministers for giving unauthorised interviews, even though they're elected and he's not. And it was Campbell who coined the phrase the People's Princess at the time of Diana's death, words that seemed to capture the mood of the nation. In this rather drab conference room at the basement of Downing Street, Alistair Campbell meets political journalists every day to try to set the news agenda. But what makes Campbell such a controversial figure, and what he'll be questioned about tomorrow, is that unlike his recent predecessors, Campbell is a partisan, not a neutral civil servant.
There's one reason why they attack the press spokesman. He does an effective job attacking the Conservative Party.
But Margaret Thatcher's former press secretary, now on the other side of the Downing Street fence, says the taxpayer shouldn't be paying his wages.
The Labour Party should pay Alistair Campbell's wages, and the simple reason is that he has a peculiar contract, which is not a civil service contract. It is a contract which enables him to perform a party political function. As such, he should not be paid by the taxpayer.
Alistair Campbell's control of the levers of news management in the government and access to the Prime Minister makes him as powerful as many cabinet ministers. But as neither a civil servant nor an elected politician, it makes many MPs uneasy as they seek ways to make him more accountable. John Sopel, BBC News, Westminster.
At the first day of Wimbledon, Britain's number 2, Tim Henman, survived a real scare in his match against Jiří Novák. The game went to 5 sets, Henman winning the decider 6-2.
The first day of Wimbledon, but somebody had clearly forgotten to tell many of the country's tennis fans. By early afternoon, the entrance to the All England club was unusually quiet. The World Cup was clearly to blame, although the more enterprising hadn't been deterred.
We've got a portable telly.
So what are you going to do when the football starts?
Watch it.
We're from Australia now. Tennis players are better than our football players, so thought we'd come along and support them. So.
Well, I don't watch football, I switch it off, but I'm rooting for Tim Henman and maybe Rosetsky to see us through as Wimbledon champions.
But the defending champion, who, as is traditional, opened proceedings on the centre court, stands as a major obstacle in the path of the British players. It hasn't been the best of years for Pete Sampras. If he fails to reach the final here, he'll lose his world #1 ranking. But the American showed against Dominic Hrbatý why he's still the man his fellow competitors fear the most. He was never troubled by the Slovakian, winning in straight sets. Sampras's challenge for a 5th Wimbledon title had been launched in style. But there was no doubt about who the fans were waiting for. Henmania sweeping through Wimbledon once again, although the British #2 supporters were in for a tense afternoon. Henman did win the first 2 sets, but still failed to settle. Novak, had only arrived in England this morning, having had no practice at all on grass, was rising to the occasion. Suddenly, it was a Czech who was playing the better tennis, and he levelled the match at 2 sets all. Henman was battling for Wimbledon survival, but facing the prospect of an exit from the tournament at the first hurdle, he managed to hold his nerve. The Briton won the final set 6-2, but this had been far too close a call for comfort. James Pearce, BBC News, Wimbledon.
And there are just minutes to go in England's second game of the World Cup Championships. They're playing Romania in Toulouse, but at the moment Romania are leading England 1-0 after taking the lead early in the second half. In today's other Group G game, Colombia beat Tunisia 1-0 in Montpellier. But with news of England, sports correspondent Neil Bennett reports from Toulouse.
This is how the organisers wanted the fans to celebrate the world's most popular game. Toulouse might have feared the worst after Marseille, but the 10,000 England supporters here have done their best to show their country's smiling face.
Only half the England fans in Toulouse managed to get match tickets through official channels. Others had to pay black market prices or watch the game somewhere other than the stadium.
So many did make it into the ground, though, that the municipal stadium lived up to its nickname of Little Wembley. England's only change was Gary Neville for the injured Southgate as the two heavyweights of Group H met head-on. Romanian veteran Georgi Hagi's first contribution was to get himself booked. His second was a corner, which England only just bundled away at the near post. After all the controversy about David Beckham's omission, he finally entered the World Cup stage midway through the half, substituting for Paul Ince. Bennett, BBC News in Toulouse.
And the other main news tonight, MPs are set to reduce the age of consent for homosexuals to 16. That's it. That's all from the 9 o'clock news. Good night.
Good evening. Lord Lanarkshire Council leader Harry McGuigan is resisting pressure to step down immediately. Labour leaders say his position is untenable after massive losses by the Direct Labour organisation. Mr McGuigan may still go, but only after publication of the auditor's report.
North Lanarkshire's ruling Labour group met late this afternoon, fully aware that the party's leaders would prefer Harry McGuigan to stand down. But Mr McGuigan has said he'll make no move before external auditors report early next month. The Council's submission to the Scottish Office puts DLO losses last year at more than £4.6 million and acknowledges a sense of anger at the situation. But following claims that one plumber earned £54,000 a year, the Council promises a cut in overtime, a review of bonuses and consideration of early retirement. After the meeting, it was confirmed the leadership will think again after auditors' report.
Councillor McGuigan is not resigning today. The position is very clear. He will consider his resignation and his position when we get receipt of the Price Waterhouse report, which is the external auditor.
Labour's Scottish leadership believes it's a step forward.
I think they clearly need to consider their position and will do so once we have the publication of the report in the next few weeks.
Meanwhile, East Ayrshire, another council facing big DLO losses, will tomorrow propose a blend of private and public provision to save money and maintain jobs.
The chairman of the Stagecoach bus and train operator, Brian Souter, has promised a better deal for Scottish rail users if his plan to acquire a 49% shareholding in Virgin Rail goes ahead. Virgin's chairman, Richard Branson, has rejected claims that the proposal could jeopardise a multi-million-pound investment in high-speed trains on the West Coast Line. The Scotland team has arrived in St Etienne ahead of tomorrow's vital clash with Morocco. Around 20,000 fans are arriving in the city. There is a growing police presence, but the SFA Chief Executive Jim Farry has said he doesn't expect any trouble.
Just over 24 hours left till the make-or-break game against Morocco, and it's Scotland's turn to take over in one of France 98's busiest match venues. But St Etienne hasn't just become the temporary home of the Tartan Army. Many people of Moroccan extraction live here in what is a city with a proud industrial record, but one also boasting high unemployment and other social problems. After virtually trouble-free visits to Paris and Bordeaux, for the first time the Tartan Army report signs of tension.
The police are very discreet, no problems, and they realise the difference between Scottish fans and English fans.
I'm convinced there will be no problems, whatever the score is. People will be celebrating, everybody. Scots and Moroccans and the French too.
While the Scots are completely confident that the French police will exert strict control, particularly in the open spaces of St Etienne, there are now genuine concerns about isolated attacks breaking out in narrow streets like this one.
That's all from the reporting Scotland team for the moment. Good night.
Good evening. The weather provided a fine start to the Wimbledon fortnight today. However, over the next few days, I think some frustrations, because tomorrow it's likely to be damp to start off with, although skies will brighten through the afternoon. On the Wednesday, it's likely to be the other way around. Some sunshine early on, but as the day progresses, clouds gathering, and late on in the day, there could be some heavy rain across southwest 18. Now, if you are heading to Wimbledon, don't forget when the sun does break through, it is going to be quite strong, so a high risk of sunburn, and also some fairly high pollen counts across many parts of the British Isles at the moment. However, the rain from these weather fronts will wash some of that pollen out of the air, and this cold front coming southwards during Wednesday is the reason I think there could be some heavy rain in the London area late on in the day. But let's come back to tonight and the heavy rain that's showing itself over Ireland. The computer fit is very good, so a fair amount of confidence that the heaviest rain will move in across North Wales, Northern England and Scotland overnight. For the rest of us, the rain is going to be of that patchy, drizzly variety, but the winds will be picking up. A very warm night across southern parts of the British Isles. And tomorrow, we start off grey and damp in many areas. I think it'll stay that way all day up through the Irish Sea, and by the afternoon, some more heavy bursts of rain returning to Northern Ireland and northwestern parts of Scotland. But some brightness breaking through from Fife through the borders into northeast England, East Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia and southeast England could lift temperatures up to around about 23 degrees. But that could also mean some fairly blustery winds to the east of the Pennines. On Wednesday, remember that weather front moving southwards, bringing its cloud and rain, brighter showery weather coming along behind. And then on Thursday, with that weather front stalling out over the North Sea, you might hear a rumble or two of thunder over East Anglia and in Kent. But I think for the rest of us, a mixture of sunshine and showers, some of which could be heavy and thundery out to the west. That's the forecast. Good night.
Hello, this is Marengo Square in the centre of Saint-Étienne, the French town where tomorrow Scotland play their vital World Cup match against Morocco. The Scots and Moroccan fans who are currently thronging the square are watching the England-Romania match at the moment on the big screen behind me. We'll have highlights of that game on a special sports scene tonight at 11:15. More importantly, perhaps, we'll be looking ahead to arguably the most important match Scotland have ever played. Sports scene live from Saint-Étienne, 11:15 tonight.
From one of her earlier series now on BBC One Scotland, Mrs. Merton is here again.